panel for a discussion on EV chaos. What does it take to build a seamless charging experience in Europe? To talk us through it, we're going to welcome our speakers, Afonso Ramos, co-founder and CPO at PowerDot, Peter Badik, chairman of the board and founder at GreenWay, Murvah Iqbal, CEO and co-founder at Hived, and our moderator for this session is Issam Tidjani, co-founder and CEO at Cariqa. Welcome to the stage to our panel. Have a good discussion. Give them a round of applause.
So, hi everyone, and hi Afonso, hi Peter, hi Murvah. So we are at an opening, at a very interesting phase of the EV charging industry. The past few years have been about deploying infrastructure, making sure that chargers were on the street, that people had enough chargers. Now we see the adoption picking up, and therefore now we are moving to the next phase, which is how do we get those chargers to be used, and how enjoyable is the experience for the EV drivers and how easy it is. And this is particularly important because we are moving now from early adopters that were typically geeks, IT people that borderline love to troubleshoot and figure things out. And now we are moving to a more mass adopter that just wants things to work. And ultimately, it's not just about user experience, because every failed charging session, it's failed revenue for the charge point operator and potentially a missed delivery for an end customer like a fleet. So
Morning.
We have the right people on the panel to discuss. Afonso and Peter will represent the charge point operator side, where Murvah will represent the end customer side. So, but let's switch gears and get into the core of the nature of what needs to be done to improve.
¿Pasa un día, Reina? No, largo.
Okay, it was a nice interruption. So let's get into the core of the problem. As of recent research, we still see that the charging success rate in the industry is still at around 80 to 86%, meaning that in the best case scenario, we are looking at 1 in 7 charging sessions that are not successful. Maybe starting with Afonso and Peter, why is it still so hard to deliver reliability into the industry? What is it that needs to be done to improve this number to close to 100%? Maybe, Afonso, would you like to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a very important point. You're absolutely right. Success rate is not where it should be. And it really doesn't matter how you measure it. It really does. Like, nothing matters. What matters is that a customer, driver, gets to the charging station and is able to unlock the charger, plug the connector, charge whatever he wants to charge, and leave, and it works every single time. Because if it fails, it breaks trust. It breaks trust in the adoption. Users don't trust chargers outside of their homes anymore, and it puts into question the transition itself. Like, it might happen that you want to switch back, or you start missing your previous car. So I think what needs to change is the cooperation between all of the stakeholders required for a session to be successful. So today, for a session to be successful, it starts with the user, but you also need the car, you need the charging infrastructure, you need the software that runs the charging infrastructure, and you might need another entity called the mobility service provider, which is another software. So as you can see, we have a lot of points of failure. So the user, typically the customer it's never the customer's fault, but it can fail in the user, it can fail in the car, it can fail in the charging station, or it can fail on the CPO software side, or it can fail on the MSP side. So I think one of the biggest problems is this links and this cooperation between the different stakeholders, between the CPO and the MSP. They need to work together, they need to share data, they need to share feedback on how to improve errors, communication, authentication. Charging station operators like ourselves need to work closer with OEMs, so car manufacturers. We need to work closer with charger vendors. I think a lot of ground needs to be covered there to mitigate these problems. And I think today, even though you have industry associations where all of these players come together, I don't think there's one proper accountability for where the charging session is failing, and second, cooperation to actually fix what is not right. And the problems are a little bit scattered. They are in the MSP, on the CPO, on the OEM, on the charger manufacturer, so they are a little bit everywhere. And we need to work together to actually solve those problems. And this kind of seems a bit vague, but it's very actionable. We just need to start working more as an ecosystem, because when one wins, we all win, and we need everyone to basically get the transition through, otherwise it will not work.
Thank you, Afonso. So indeed, a long chain of events that needs to happen for a charging session to be successful. Peter, what is your perspective on this?
Well, as Afonso said, these are complex things. And I very often get these questions, why it doesn't work, why so many times the session may fail. And when I try to explain it, I usually use the apple. I don't have apple, I didn't find anything in the breakfast, so imagine I have an apple here, in my hand. You can take the apple, you can just bite it. Or I can take the apple and bring it home, cut it nicely, put the sugar and cinnamon in it and eat it that way. Or I can make the cake out of it. And that's the EV charging. You can go to the EV charger and do relatively simple things. You plug the charge, you pay with a credit card, and you do the sessions. Or you have your CPO, which is just together as well some mobile app which provides you a different level of services. You can see on the app if the charger is free or not, where you are moving there, or you may have a different subscription program. You may be rewarded because you are loyal customers, or because you committed to take more, or you may have even someone who is not operating your charger, and there is external EMP who basically is cooking a pie, basically, because it's trying to do, again, something different and provide different level of services. I'm not very happy with the name which is here, that is EV chaos. I think it's not chaos, it's more palette of choices. And you can go the first thing, you can just bite your apple immediately, or you can make a pie. And it's fine, it's okay. Everybody should have a possibility to choose. That's when I think regulation should require that everybody has a possibility to choose. So you should have as well the possibility to pay on the charger, and you have the possibility to have the external EMP. It will give you access to the number of charging locations. So it's a pretty complex thing, and you can screw it up pretty nicely, as in the same way as you can screw up the baking of an apple pie. But as Afonso said, we need to work together to improve it. One simple element is that the industry is still not big enough. If you look, what we are doing is we are interacting with at least two machines, charger and car, human in the middle, and a lot of software and a lot of various companies inside. So I know that it doesn't look like that, because it seems to, from the perspective of the EV user, is pretty simple. I just plug in and I want to charge. But it's a pretty complex, and it's very hard even to find similar cases where you need to interact with the machines, with the people, with the software. Very often with the machines and software, very often with the machines and people, but very rarely all these three things together, and then really things can go wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And maybe switching from the perspective of the end user, Murvah, how are you thinking reliability? What does a failed charging session means for you and for your drivers?
Quite frankly, a failed charging session can't happen for us, because a delivery driver is has certain times to hit. The end customer, which is receiving the parcel in our case, has certain expectations. So for us, charging reliability has been paramount to our core business. And even in 2021, when we started it off, we had that core premise. A lot of advancements has happened, but we have to ensure 100% for all our drivers. And so we rely on quite a few mixed cases charging at depot, but we have to use the public infrastructure quite a lot. And in the years that we've had Hived, we understand quite accurately which charge points are reliable, which not, what speed, how quick they charge, how reliable they are. Amenities as well, super important for our drivers as well. So we look at it as a whole factor, and then integrate that into our routing algorithms for our drivers. So if we already know that they're getting a certain percentage of their battery, we'll point them to the right charger that we think. But we've had to invest in our own megawatt charging. We're doing a massive megawatt installation charging right now at our depot, because there is still, like, 1 in 7 is not good enough for us, for our drivers. And so we encourage drivers to charge at depot, and, as you know, if possible, the ones that we advise on the road. But it's critical for us.
Fantastic. And maybe, do you also train your staff to troubleshoot charges and understand how do you go around the challenge?
So our fleet is 100% electric. We lease a lot of our middle mile trucks, but also the final mile, a lot of drivers own their own electric vans. So we've had to educate a lot of drivers actually how to adapt to EV, how to drive better, how to actually charge. And so they go through thorough onboarding on that. And then we actually track when they're driving. If some drivers are going through their range much quicker than the route suggests, then they need to do more training. And then we also explain to them how to actually use the charge points. And then we try to make it as easy as possible to use only certain brands or certain software providers that we know are reliable, and to make it seamless for them on the road. So a lot of education has gone into it from our side in our app, and we're learning a lot. But we need we need to enable them better, and that's what we're constantly figuring out to do. And it's all about actually the marginal gains as well, right? Like in all of this. And so we take quite a holistic approach in how to make the drivers, enable them to become EV quicker and better.
Fantastic. Great. So let's switch to a different topic, which is also part of how can we make it better for EV drivers on the streets, which is price transparency. So today, to take the same cake analogy that Peter just made, there are different recipes in the industry that allows people to charge. But this leads also to maybe an unintended consequence, which is that the same charging point with the same plug, same power, same everything can have dozens of different prices, which leaves in a way sometimes the users figuring out which is the right price, because sometimes even the price at the payment terminal is higher than the price on a random app from a third party, and the EV drivers do not know the commercials that are underneath those price variations, which might eventually lead to also trust issues vis-a-vis the CPO, because if the price that the CPO offers is more expensive than the one that they see on another app, they start guessing who is ripping me off, right? So why is this happening? Can you share with the audience a little bit more on how the commercial guts of EV charging work? Maybe Peter, if you would like to go first.
I would just follow with the same example as you said. I think, you said it's the same charging point at different prices. Yeah. And it's the same apple in a pie, and as well, if I buy it, it's the same apple, but it's actually not the same charging point. It's not the same transaction. Mm-hmm. And while on the first case, which I use, with the transaction is really between your operator and the charging point. You are using the tap card, and you can probably have a price displayed somewhere, even on a totem, so it's super transparent. You come there, it's like in the gas stations today. Mm-hmm. Or you have your operator who very often is as well the owner of the charger, and then they provide you a certain subscription program or some other benefits. And you don't have to subscribe, you don't have to do that. But if you want to have a little bit of more benefits, you describe for something else than just the first case. Or then you go for, the EMP provider, which is embedded in your car. And then you have variety of choices. You have the chargers directly in your dashboard. So again, it's a different thing. It's not the same thing. And therefore, there are different prices. So I wouldn't like to live in a world where everything is the same, and I have to have only one choice. I prefer to live in a world where I have more choices, and if I prefer this one, I will go that way, and so on and so forth. And obviously, there is different strategies behind everything. Everybody can have a different strategies in that value chain. So I think it's a little bit of just about how to settle the market, and the people can choose, and they will understand what's my preferences, how can I treat it. So that's important. But it's just, I think, in my view, important is that we do not build infrastructure which is only limited to one case, because that's I think not healthy. But giving the people more choices is generally fine. That's one thing. And another thing is generally the level of cost, and there's a completely different story. We would spend here probably more time to explaining what is the cost structure of the charging, and why the charging at home is very different than the charging on a highway, and what is the cost included into that, and how they need to be recovered. So I would say that that's a different story. But in terms of different prices, I see there's more choices, not as it's a feature, it's not a bug.
Okay. Now, Afonso, what is your perspective on this?
Yeah. So just picking on this Apple analogy, which I rather like, I think just making the point with the previous topic, even though you can eat the apple in several forms, at the end of the day, you need to eat the apple. So the charger always needs to work, regardless of its form. And just on the pricing, I think I would start with, rather than transparency, simplicity. Pricing needs to be simple. It needs to be predictable. And the fact is that today, that's not always the case. You have complex and Dantesque pricing structures that confuse the users, and you almost never know what to expect. And it's completely true. It's a complex topic. And what you see when you get to a station might not always be what you get when you open the app that you use every day. And the reason, and I agree, it's a feature, not a bug. Because if that happens, if you pay more somewhere, it means that you need to get more value out of it. And of course, a kilowatt hour is a kilowatt hour. It doesn't matter. That's what you get at the end of the day. But when you open when you open an app, let's say, it needs to provide you something to justify the additional value on top of that kilowatt hour. Be it a subscription, be it the ability to control the charger in some form that you don't have when you use a payment terminal, so on and so forth. But again, here I come back a bit to my previous point, which is relationships between CPOs, the MSPs. It's a little bit complex. I think there's room to be simplified. But at the end of the day, I think we need, as an industry, to simplify the price structure, make it a little bit more predictable, and make more evident that when you pay more for something, it needs to deliver more value. If it doesn't, I think the market will just work, and whoever is paying more will eventually either have to charge whoever is charging more will have to eventually charge less if they're not adding the value that they're supposed to be adding, or eventually leave the market at some point. But simplicity is really key, and really making sure that if you're charging more, you're delivering the value for that extra cent or cents is clear to the user. That's super important.
Very good. And Murvah, to you, so for fleets, total cost of ownership is incredibly important. Every penny counts. You mentioned that you charge mostly at depot, but how do you look at pricing on when you need to charge on the go? Is that?
Yeah, pricing is super important for us because we actually, when I think a lot of people think about Hived and think, oh, are you EV first because it's a custom proposition? We're like, no, we're EV first because if you're building a parcel delivery network in the 21st century, we're doing it in the most efficient way, and we believe that the total cost of ownership of running an EV fleet is much cheaper. And that's exemplified by, if you look at our trucks, it's 30p per kilometer versus 80p per kilometer versus diesel. So it is a lot cheaper to run the total cost, and we know that. And when we look on the road, of course, in London especially, the charges is very expensive. It's equivalent to diesel charging sometimes. I mean, diesel for the fast charges. So we try to, we don't want our drivers to use the fast chargers unless an emergency happens for some reason. So we're always trying to kind of route properly, essentially, to make sure that doesn't happen. And we look at overnight charging as well. There's lots of, buying tariffs cheaper for overnight. So in any case, if that does happen in an emergency where we're looking at at the edge case where we have to use a fast charging, of course, then we partner with the supplier to make sure we get the best rate, preferential rates. But realistically for us, we look at it as a total cost. And if you're looking at the London chargers, you're paying the equivalent of filling up a diesel tank. So it doesn't really give to our advantage of being the most efficient, getting the advantage of using EV. So we incentivize our drivers to charge overnight, or we charge the depot where we use the overnight tariff, or with our new megawatt, we're doing one of the first megawatt installations at our depot. Drivers will be able to charge in 15 minutes whilst loading their vehicle and go, and we'll be able to charge them wholesale rates. So really trying to maximize the efficiency of actually being an EV first fleet, which unfortunately, the first 2 years of the company, we've not actually managed to reap the rewards of, but we believe in the long-term vision of this. And we're partnering very closely, working very closely with a lot of the charging manufacturers as well, and the providers. We're also working with actually vehicles manufacturers, so we're working with Flexis on developing a new last-mile EV vehicle to actually optimize it for the route duration for the driver, make it more integrated. So we believe in the future, obviously. It's proven. But right now, if you look at London, it's really tricky to actually make economically fast charging work en route. So try to avoid that as possible, but there's lots of other ways that we are taking advantage of it.
Very good. And maybe going back to the charge point operator business side. So we know that now the chargers are down, they need to be used, right? And utilization is one of the key metrics that you guys are looking at. And there are plenty of research made by Octopus with Center of Net Zero that, for example, to cite one, that shows that price variations really shape demand. Mm-hmm. So how are you thinking about pricing as a signal to drive demand to your own infrastructure? And it's quite interesting because you guys are following a completely different philosophy. PowerDot decided not to have an own charging app, and they work exclusively via partnership, while Peter, you are investing quite a lot in having your own digital interface. So can you talk to us a little bit about your thinking on how price shapes demand?
You're right. We decided to have a direct relationship with the customers, and one of the reasons is basically to set the prices and not set only one level, but maybe prices different per location, different per time of use, different for customers. So to play with that a bit, to find the kind of a sweet spot in a way that we are able to offer various things. So sometimes a little bit more expensive, sometimes more cheaper. What it's, I think, very important to understand, and I think it's the same regardless, whatever CPO you look, that could be up to 2/3 of the cost are fixed cost. So you look on the depreciation in your investment cost, your fixed rental, you look on the cost of your operation, basically, and it doesn't matter how many kilowatt hour you deliver, this is something which you need to pay. So therefore, this explains a lot about how important is utilization, but as well explain that if you have a customer who is able to commit for a certain volume, or basically that taking some kind of let's call it PPA. We are not there yet in this business to call it PPA, but that's a huge value for every CPO. So if you have such a customer, you can really offer them very different prices and as well level of services. So I think that's our strategy. We'll see if it will work. If you're asking if people are generally responsive, it's like with everything on the market. You have a group of the customers who are responsive very much for the prices. You have a group of people who don't care, and those who are really somewhere in the middle. And you are trying to optimize it. And obviously there is one reference just said is that this charging is still not kind of big enough to play in the same way as, for example, some digital industries. So we have already millions of customers in Europe, but it's not the tens of millions, not the hundreds of millions. So for example, certain testing of for example, price elasticity takes simply longer because you have a smaller sample, and it's not possible to do it very fast. So I would say we are getting there as the industry maturing. They are as well much more knowledgeable about the pricing, about the reaction of the market, about the reaction of the customers, about the market segmentation, customer segmentation, and is able to come with I think better tailor-made proposals. But yeah, for that we need to work with the customers, and that's reasons why we decided to have interface and trying to work with them.
Very good.
Yeah,
Afonso?
this is obviously a topic we could speak about for a very long time, but I'll try to explain how we look at pricing from our perspective, and this is mostly driven by our investment thesis. So at Pardot, our investment thesis is destination charging. And destination charging, or at least the way we use the term, is not the same as you're thinking like Tesla destination charging AC. It's not like that. So for us, destination charging is installing chargers in everyday locations. So supermarkets, shopping malls, gyms, so places where the people go on their everyday life. And for us, what characterizes this destination charging is that charging is actually not the primary activity. So charging is something you do while you're doing something else. And so this is how we look at pricing. It starts and it's driven by the location itself. So the value or the value that you attribute to charging at a place like this, it's obviously driven by the convenience of the location itself. So for us, one of the reasons why we've decided not to build an app and not to have this direct contact with the user, first and foremost, is because we're an infrastructure company. We're an infrastructure operator. And second, there are hundreds and hundreds of companies already doing that and building these apps. And so we prefer to partner. And obviously, we partner as well with our competitors who have apps. And so this is how we look at it. We prefer to have this partnership mindset. We prefer to focus on the infrastructure. We prefer to focus on making sure the user always has the Apple, no matter what. And then we cooperate with whoever is doing a great job at building the app and building that layer of contact with the customer. And what we've found is that typically this doesn't restrict us at all, as long as we have this cooperation mindset, in terms of defining pricing, in terms of driving pricing. And then the way we look at it is it's driven by the convenience. So we always select the best locations. And we think, obviously today this is not 100% true because we're not at steady, high maturity, mass market stage, but we think that at some point this strategy will lead to demand is driven by the location itself and not necessarily by the price. Obviously price needs to be adjusted to the power, to the convenience, to everything else. But demand will be driven by the location. This is our view.
Very good. Murvah, any final thoughts on this topic from the end user perspective?
I think we covered quite a lot, but I think that the location on pricing always is the key thing, right? Where it's in demand location, pricing is always going to be higher, but we believe in destination charging even for our own version. We want the driver not to be wasting time charging and sitting there idle, right? It's wasted time. So for instance, now we're developing so charging and loading at the same time, right? Can they load and then the vehicle and charge at the same time, or are they taking their lunch break and charging at the same time? So that whole philosophy of destination charging is something that we strongly believe in because time is money for everyone at the end of the day. And so that's key, what we believe, and we hope to work with partners that have shared that vision. I think the other thing is, which I think you mentioned, is like everyone doesn't want to build it all themselves. You have to collaborate, and in order for this to work seamlessly, there needs to be a lot of collaboration with lots of different partners, from us as the customers, from the apps. Everyone needs to collaborate together, really, and kind of specialize in their key area and not try to do all themselves, because that becomes quite hard.
Wonderful. So we are at time. Thanks a lot for being with me on stage. That was very insightful. I hope it was insightful also for the audience. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.